Hello, Andrew Jobling, the accidental author, and welcome to another wonderful conversation I'm about to have with the fabulous Jacqueline Shaulis. Hi, Jacqueline.
Hello.
Hey, it's good to have you back. When I say back, you're on a podcast that we did a few weeks ago now. Doesn't time fly? That feels like last week.
Yeah.
About 2 months ago.
It seems like it was 2 days ago and maybe 2 years ago simultaneously. Time is funny like that.
It sure is. It sure is. And Jacqueline, the thing that sort of, we had a great conversation about introversion and about really tapping into your inner awesome, which I think is great. Embrace your awesome is a big phrase that you use a lot, and you coach people and help people and inspire people to be authentically them and live their best life, and that's awesomeness. So,
Yes.
but the other thing is you are the published author of 25 books.
Yes. Yeah. Number
And
26 comes out in April. I'm a contributing author to number 26. So, yay.
That's so exciting. That's so, and now your author journey started for you. How old were you? You were young. You were just a kid.
11.
11
Yeah.
years old. Tell us about
11.
Look, so this conversation, Jacqueline's going out to aspiring authors and going out to people that are trying to write a book, have written a book, trying to get it published, have published a book, trying to sell it, trying to create success with the book, I guess, as a foundation piece of, trying to have an impact on lives. And you're doing that. Tell us about it. I'd love to know, as an 11-year-old, how did that happen for you? I mean, tell us how that journey started.
Well, I shared this before, but I mean, for me, I always knew that there are 3 things I knew for sure, like very young. I knew I would be a writer. In fact, my aspiration when I grew up was to be a New York Times best-selling author. I'm still working towards that one, but I always knew that would be part of what I would do. I knew I would speak on stages, and I knew I would travel the world. So as a 5-year-old, I knew this. I just, like, how am I going to do that? Like, who's going to teach me that in this family? And so my parents, in trying to encourage and nurture my love of writing, because I would write all the time, plays, I would write different poems, so on and so forth. They found a program for young writers called the Young Writers Guild. And so this organization, the whole point of it was to cultivate that and nurture that writing passion for young teens. I was one of the youngest people there. There was one kid who was younger than me, believe it or not. But within that program, we learned about the craft of writing. It was focused on fiction. So my very first piece was fiction. I hardly ever do fiction. Because that was so much work for me. But that's where it really started, was being in this space where it was completely different from everything else around me. I had a really supportive system of adults who were nurturing and teaching us the craft of writing, and writing with your audience in mind. And how do you cultivate the voice of your characters while also infusing yourself into the narratives? And so those kind of foundational pieces started everything else. It was a great experience. It was a little stunning, and I didn't realize the magnitude of it then, but those lessons continue on even till today, to the very chapter of the book that I mentioned that's coming out in April. Those same lessons, I still lean back on those.
Yeah, wow, amazing. And I think the first thing that jumps out, Jacqueline, about you is you just have this inherent belief in yourself. I mean, as a young person, a 5-year-old, I'm going to be a published New York Times best-selling author. I'm going to speak on. Now, that's not uncommon for young people, for children to have that kind of belief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but to have it and run with it and keep believing it all the way through young, childhood, young teen, and into your adulthood, that's tough. I think for most people, the biggest challenge they have is self-belief. What do you feel like you had such belief in yourself, and how were you able to really keep that belief strong as you created this incredible success in your writing?
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting question, because I think it's easy to say, oh, this was your aspiration as a child. You've gone on to do this. You must have believed in yourself the whole time. No, no. There are those kind of intrinsic pieces that I knew they were just like, I don't know how I know. Like, this is almost like a divinely inspired path. Like, I just know this is what I'm going to do. There are no writers in my family. There are no people traveling. Most of my family hasn't been out of the state, let alone out of the country. There was nothing around me to really prompt that sort of notion. And that's part of what made it a challenge. Even though I knew intuitively that this is my path, everything around me was like, you sure about that? Now add to it being an introvert and an extroverted family, and you have these types of lofty goals. And so for me, part of it was just, I don't know how this is going to happen. I just know eventually it is. There's that sort of belief I would have to lean on in the moments where it's like, okay, there's no way that I can do this.
Yeah.
So I'll take you through an example of this, where I left doing all of the things that I'm doing now. I left that world for the normal world, for the corporate side. Let me do like the 9 to 5, tick off all of the things. I stopped writing. Like, I couldn't write. I couldn't tap into it. I shut that part off in order to fit someone else's kind of identity of what should happen. And it wasn't until I left that position and kind of regained this notion of, let me just see where this goes. If I were just to write this, if I were just to do this piece for myself, let's see what would happen. That allowed me to begin to kind of playfully like lean back into that intuitive knowing that I had from way back when. So it was never a continuous line. It's like almost like a heartbeat, like lots of ups and downs, and a little bit of flatlining and then more ups and downs. But it's that duality is where really a lot of the inspiration for the things that I write come from walking that line between knowing with all certainty that this will happen and also trying to convince yourself to believe that that this will surely happen.
Yeah, there's two levels of belief, really, isn't there? There is that intuitive, deep down knowing that it'll happen, even without knowing how it will happen. So, and I know exactly how that feels, because when I decided to write my first book, I was in my mid to late 30s. I had no writing experience, never at any point up until that moment thought about writing a book. I had no time, background, experience, qualifications. I had nothing. But interesting, when I made the decision to write a book, I knew, again, same thing. Inherently, I knew it would be done. I just didn't know I could do it, or I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's this belief about, well, it's going to happen, but can I do it? And
don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to get from here to there. Somehow it's going to work out. Is there a way that I can lean towards that? Is there something I can do to put me closer to that path? A lot of the writing that I did kind of earlier on, even after that first book, has been that, like, if I were to say something, what would I say? Like, what would it be like for me to even put my thoughts down? And sometimes for the writing process, sometimes it's me I'll get an inspiration. I call them divine downloads, where I have to grab this now. And I'm like furiously on my phone trying to type away. My thumbs are like practically burning smoke with me trying to capture it. There are other times where I'll use like a transcription service like Otter or what have you, and I'll just speak what's coming to me or the ideas that are coming to me and then come back to that. Sometimes I come to it immediately. Sometimes it's years before I come back to those things, but it's grabbing those little pieces where I don't know how and where the path is going to go. I know one piece of it is that I will be here. So what can I do to get one step closer towards that?
Yeah,
that would be my main encouragement for aspiring writers. And especially like you're definitely proof of that. It's like, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Let me just start somewhere. And the starting somewhere is what creates the momentum for actually doing the movement and making traction towards that goal. And then before you know it, oh my God, I'm here. Like, I actually did this.
Yeah, so true. It's taking action is the biggest piece of the belief building process, because how can you believe in something you've never done? Like, how can you honestly, really logically, how do you believe that you can do something that you've never done before? Like, you can, and I don't know if I believed it. I just didn't know. I didn't know that I could. I didn't believe that I could. I just didn't know that I couldn't. And I knew that, well, I can take a step. I can believe in the first step. As you just said, I love that. Just start somewhere. We can all start wherever we're at. So people watching this, wherever you're at right now, and you've maybe hit a roadblock, or maybe that self-talk starting to get louder and louder, that can't do it. What are you doing? You're wasting your time. It's no good. No one's going to read it. No one's going to publish it. No one's going to buy it. Blah, 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 blah. What can you do? What can you do from where you are right now that will move you forward, but actually start to build that belief, right? Like, because every step we take in the direction, we start to believe more.
Absolutely. And it's in taking those actions that you begin to see progress. At first, it's just, at least for me, let me speak for myself. For me, when I'm writing something, especially if I'm not a contributing author to a book, but I'm writing it full out, it starts off with me just trying to gather thoughts. Like I'll have a million thoughts in my head on what I want to pursue. I know this thing wants to come out. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know how it's going to look. It's like, it feels like it's going to be like something useful. Like, hopefully it will be. Okay. So this is something that needs to come out. What can I do towards that? Let me just type out these things, these ideas that are coming to my mind. Let me capture them while they're there. If I'm noticing, if I have these pieces and maybe I notice something else that brings back to my memory a little voice note that I left myself, or something that I typed in a memo on my phone, then I can grab those sort of pieces and build on it from there. Sometimes it's a very lengthy process, but I've also had books that were a very short process. I mean, the shortest one is honestly one of my best-selling books. It's one that I went to a cabin in the woods, a literal cabin in the literal woods, because I knew I just needed to be away from all noise. And I wrote that book over the course of a week. I had almost all of it was just pouring out of me faster than I could capture. And it took maybe a couple of weeks or so afterward for doing editing and proofreading and all of that. And it was out. I had no control over that. I couldn't stop that freight train if I wanted to. But then there are other pieces. Another one of my bestsellers, it was years. It was years of like small cobblestones. And over the years, the story kind of built and built and built and built until after a while, it was the book. It came to me not only talking about what was happening now, but looking at all of these sort of cobblestones leading the way. So in my mind, it was just going to be this one thing, but in fact, it became something that was much more documenting the process. What was my mindset along the way? How did my mindset change from this point to that point? Oh, this thing happened, it leads to this. So it's important not to judge how your art is wanting to be expressed. Honor that, one, your art wants to be expressed. Two, your art wants to be expressed through you as opposed to anyone else. And three, that it is worthy of being expressed. Those words are going to land with the people that they are meant for. No one and no thing is for everyone. Water is for everyone, not if you're allergic to it. Sun is for everyone, not if it causes your skin to have problems. There is nothing that is for everyone. There's always one exception. Free yourself from the need to be everything to everyone so that your art can go forth. We are waiting. We're waiting for your glorious words to like pour life into us. So take that judgment off of yourself so they can.
Yeah, that's such amazing advice, Jacqueline.
I feel like that was a sermon. I'm so sorry.
You just let that flow out of you. Then you should have written that down. Like, there's a book.
Thank goodness we're recording this.
Luckily, I'm recording it. We've got this for posterity. But it's so true, isn't it? And I think, you talked about the book that you wrote in a week, and then the one that took years. And the one that took years, it had to take years. I mean, that book needed years for it to be the book it became, right? Like, you talked about the judgment. We judge, oh, I'm so slow. It's been years and years and years. And some people have taken 9 years, 10 years or longer. Some people have done it quickly. But the people that are watching this that have taken a few years, and you're sitting there beating yourself up going, oh, it's not done. You're exactly where you need to be. And you're learning stuff along the way that you'll add to this book, and you'll make it the book it needs to be. It needs to take this long for it to be the book it needs to be. And I think that's a really
absolutely.
The other thing I got coming through very strongly when you're talking is faith. like
Yeah.
faith is such an important piece of this process. In other words, not needing to have all the answers, but trusting that you already have them, or trusting that you will discover them as you get started. And this, all the stuff we're talking about is to take all this pressure off people that are beating themselves up because it's not good enough, and I'm taking too long, and am I good? Can I do it? Get rid of all that stuff and just take a big deep breath and go, just have an inner knowing that it will be done, and then start where you're at, have faith, and just let it flow. And however long it takes, and whatever comes out of you, that's awesome.
Absolutely. And I want to just take a moment to normalize the fact that you may be questioning or doubting your ability to share, if what you're sharing is valuable, if the way that you're sharing it is valuable. Let me just normalize that. That is normal. That is a normal experience. Now, what makes the difference between the people who are doing major things, people who live in regret and no longer can do those things, and the rest of us who are somewhere in the middle, is what you do while you have those doubts. There won't be a point where you completely eradicate those doubts, because even when you think you've gotten them all out of there, you get everything just right. It's like, be sure about that? Like this little voice, like, where'd you come from? I was done with that. That is part of the process. You can still write your book, transform lives, enrich yourself, not just financially, but from a spiritual side, and also have those thoughts and even like feelings or hearing those doubts. They're not mutually exclusive. They can both coexist. It's how you are maneuvering and operating while they're there. So let me just normalize that, because I know for me and for other people that I've worked with, it's like, okay, once I get rid of all of my doubt, once I get rid of like imposter syndrome or any of this, once I get rid of that, then I can do something. No. You have that, and also you're doing the thing that you're called to do. It's both of these. And as you're doing that thing, that's what begins to quiet those voices. That's what begins to diminish those doubts. They'll be there, just not as loud, just not as attention grabbing. Just maneuver. It's that you're not alone in that experience.
Because okay, so let me ask you this, Jacqueline. Do you still doubt yourself at times?
Oh, absolutely. I was actually having a conversation with someone a couple weeks ago, not even a couple weeks ago, like a few days ago, this past weekend, about right now projects that I'm working on. Of all the things that I've done, and I've accomplished a lot in my life, I've lived a lot of different lives in my time here, I still question, do I really need to do that? Like, shouldn't I add something else so that it's like important enough? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I was having a conversation with someone, because even I still have those moments, but I recognize when that's there, it's like, okay, hold up. That's ridiculous. I know that there are people who need what I have to offer, because I have been on the receiving end of others who poured into me despite their doubts and their hesitations and their questioning. So what if I just put this together and I just put it out and allowed it to be what it is? What if I just did that?
Yeah.
Okay. The end. That's like the beginning and end of it.
That's it. So, and I think that's exactly how we need to deal with doubt, because you're right. You've got it, I've got it, everyone's got it. And people look at probably someone like you and go, really? You still doubt yourself? And they look at me.
Like, oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, God, yes.
Absolutely. So the thing is, you've got to feel the doubt. That's going to happen anyway, but don't let that be a barrier. Just keep moving anyway. And that doubt and that voice, as you said, will start to quieten and quieten. It won't go away. Don't expect to get rid of it, because it will always pop up, because we're humans and we doubt and we have fear, and we experience all of those emotions. So, wow, Jacqueline, this has been incredibly powerful, short chat we've had, which I knew it would be. There's been some great stuff there. I'm going to just one final hint for aspiring authors to really help them break through something that might be holding them back right now.
I would say to look at what is your immediate passion. Like, what is that thing that even made you want to pursue this, because this is not a lane for the timid. It requires so much of you to be able to share your artistry, and to write is artistry, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, it's artistry. So going back to what even put you on this path, and tapping into that feeling of knowing that this is where I'm meant to be, this is what I'm meant to do. Allow that light to be the one that shines, because your readers who will get your finished work, they're waiting for you to step into that light, and that light shining is what will lead them on the right path for themselves.
Awesome. Wonderful. Jacqueline, if people want to reach out to you, maybe have a chat or buy your book, buy one or all of your books, how do they do that?
You can always find me at IEmbraceAwesome.com. That is my home base. So you'll find out places to get my books, meet with me on social media, schedule a chat with me. I'm an introvert, but I do like connecting with people. So go to IEmbraceAwesome.com and you'll be set.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for sharing such wisdom and inspiration. It's been wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.